inspiring you to set the marketplace ablaze in partnership with an awesome and limitless God. This is the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast, and this isn't business as usual. Here's your host and Chief Fire Igniter, Shay Bynes.
Welcome back to the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. This is your host, Shay Bynes, and our goal here is to inspire you to operate your business completely yielded and in partnership with our awesome and limitless God. Today's conversation is with someone very special to me. She is a member of Team KDE, and her name is Stephanie Harris. Stephanie is the owner and founder of 2 childcare centers in the Alexandria, Virginia area, and she serves as one of our Igniters mentors. Now, I truly believe with my entire soul that there is breakthrough and freedom and increase that is being released in this very podcast episode. I'm already thanking God in advance for it, praising Him for it, and I'm looking forward to hearing the email testimonies that come from those who experience it. So I'm going to get out of the way so we can get started, and you can listen in and enjoy this conversation with Stephanie Harris. Stephanie Harris, how are you, my dear?
I am good. How are you?
I am doing great. You are one of my favorites.
Yay. Yay me, right?
Yes, yay you. So you guys listening, Stephanie Harris is part of Team KDE. She is part of our Igniters family. She's now a mentor in our Igniters community, and she's just a dear, dear person. And so I'm so grateful to have her here. And we're just going to talk about your story, Stephanie, because I've been trying to make sure that we interview everybody who's on Team KDE so that people can get a chance to hear their stories, hear what they've walked through in terms of learning how to do business in partnership with God, what that's meant for them and the work that they do. So I want to explore your story now. So let's go back. First, let's start here. Share with everybody what you currently do in business. And then I want you to take us back and share how you got started in the work that you do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. So I own 2 childcare centers in the DC metro area in Alexandria. And I started just based off of a dream. And so I was in high school in an early childhood program and working in a school after school, working in a childcare program after school, and realized that I just loved what I was doing. Like I was in there, I would count the lady's shelves. I would see how many books she had, and I would look in the catalog and see exactly how much it was going to cost me to do what she was doing. And I started making my business plan at 16 years old. I started saving half of every check. I was making $6.50 an hour and started saving to have a school. And I went to college and taught for 3 years. And then at 26, I opened my first location. And it's just, I get to live my dream.
That is so cool. Okay, so you were 16. I missed that part of your story before when we've chatted. You were 16 years old when you were already deciding at that point that I don't even just want to work in a childcare center. I want to actually be an owner of a childcare center.
Yes. So we have a co-op program in our high school. So it's like an elective course, but it's a 2-block course, and you literally go to the Head Start, you volunteer, and then some of us work after school. And so, yeah, I was in high school, and it wasn't a formal business plan I was writing. It was like a chart with the price, with the quantity.
Right.
Okay, how much is this going to cost me? But yeah, that's how it all started.
That's so fun. Now, does business ownership run in your family?
No. So I am the product of a single parent. My mom still calls my employees my coworkers. Just like, what are your coworkers doing, right? So I'm the first generation in my family to go to college. I'm the first generation business owner and entrepreneur. My mom was a nurse, had the same job for 40 years. She never left the hospital. So when I was able to open, I was able to convince her to retire. But yeah, I'm the first for my family.
Wow, so fun. Okay, so now you said you were 26 when you started the first center. And right now you have 2.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So now what made you, because I don't know how long you've been around Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur and whether your showing up in the community was hopping right into Igniter. So you got to give me that insight because I actually don't know that story.
So basically at 26, when I opened my first school, 10 days later, my grandmother had a stroke. And so the time when you're supposed to be nurturing your business, your baby, I had kind of trusted someone else to do that. And I was at the hospital each day with my grandma. And with that, there were a lot of things that went haywire. There were a lot of things that were crazy. I didn't know enough about leadership and organizational culture and managing a team to even recognize it. And so I needed help. And what ended up happening in childcare, you have to have a certain level of compliance. And so we went below that level. And I was like, God, these people keep coming from the state. I'm literally going to lose my business if I can't turn this around. I don't know what to do. And so, of course, I went to Amazon. And I started looking and trying to figure out how to get God in my business, because I felt like God was right there with me, right? We were partners. But at that point, it was like we were partners, but, he was just there to help me. I hadn't really made him the CEO. I hadn't really made him like the leader of my business. And so I was on Amazon and I found your book, Doing Business God's Way. And that was a tremendous help for me in turning everything around and then just dealing with the loss of my grandma and all of that. And so I read the book. I would watch the Igniters page. I joined KDE, the online Facebook group, and then I left. And then I would watch how you would open up. And I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to be in here. But again, you're young. You don't really know. You're like, am I supposed to be in here? So I was trying to figure it out. And then I remember I joined. And I think when I joined, I had missed the deadline by one day. I don't know if you remember this.
I don't.
I was like, can I still join? And I never missed deadlines. So I was like, okay. And you were like, okay, come on. And we made it work. There was still a space left for me. I think someone had pulled out or something. There was still a space left for me. And it's been great ever since.
Oh, that's so fun. Okay. So that's interesting. So you were dealing with a lot of kind of complications in your business. And you're like, listen, I feel like I need to, some people would have said to that, I need to go find some leadership training on this particular topic, or I need to go get a business coach who's going to help me with all these areas. You said, I think I need more God in my business.
Yeah. I don't even think I knew what a business coach was at the time. Like,
I love this.
The brick and mortar world is different. Than the online space. And so I don't think I would have even known to look for like a business coach. I don't even know. This was in 2014. So I don't even, were there business coaches back then? It's not like it was, yes. Like how it was back then. It's definitely not like it is now. But
right.
I was like, God help, please.
I love that.
Because with childcare, when you go under compliance and you have the state monitoring everything you do, you're at risk for not getting your license. And so that is something that's very serious, because without a license, you can't operate.
Right.
You still have a lease. You still have, all the things that come with business. And so I needed God to turn everything around. And he did.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the turnaround. So when you're like, listen, we're kind of in a bind here. God help. I need you as like the ultimate CEO of this business. Talk to me about what happened and how things turned around for you.
Well, that's kind of a long story. Literally, I will tell you, I went through phases. And so 2014, I opened the schools. From 2014 till probably early 2016, we were in that challenging space because the state was coming out every month. We were on, I don't even know what they call it, but basically they're usually only coming out twice a year and they were coming out every month. So you guys can get the picture on that.
Right.
And it was literally, this inspection would happen. I would go to the bathroom, the kids' bathroom, actually the adult side of the kids' bathroom, and be on my knees in prayer, like, Lord, please, please don't let us have any violations. But I started really trying to use my team. I brought a friend over who was a little bit stronger than the first person that I had hired, but it still didn't work out well. And she was a great person to carry us over in the meantime. And so that was helpful. And then I went to a church service, right? This is the most random thing. I went to a church service. I didn't even belong to the church. And I was sitting there. It was like a Friday night service too. And I was like, what am I doing here? And in that service, it didn't have anything to do with the sermon, but God was like, you have to get your joy back. And it's like something went off, like it was a light. I was like, I've got to get my joy back. Like, I didn't even know it was gone. And so he said that. We ended up doing Zumba training for our staff. I did a training on bringing the happy back. And that's when my culture started shifting. But It all goes back to me being in that service and hearing, you got to get your joy back. Like that was it. And then everything started turning for me. But it took some time.
Wow. So that's when I think about your story, I always think about your team. Like you take it very seriously that you have, a team of people with all of you guys coming together to serve your community, to serve these children. And more than most people that I have conversations with, you have a serious focus on how to develop those who are on your staff and how to create a culture, a family atmosphere, and all of that stuff. So one of the things I remember you taking out of kind of Igniters is when we were going through and looking at spiritual giftings and what are our spiritual giftings and what does that look like? What did yours come up as, by the way?
Administration, faith, and worship.
Administration, faith, and worship. And then you went and took this idea and you were like, wow, I really actually want to help my staff think about their skills beyond just some certain tactical skills that they have. I also want them to think about just some of the other things that God has given them. And didn't you take this like to your team?
Yes, I did. It's a tool that we use all the time. Like it, that book, Unfair Advantage? Like I feel like that gives us an unfair advantage. Like when you know what someone was created for and you can speak to their gifts, it makes your business run so much better because they're in the position that they're supposed to be in and they're doing what they're called to do. So they have so much loyalty to you, and it's not because of you, it's because they're operating in their gift. Okay,
so when you're talking, we're talking about Holy Spirit given gifts, right? Mm-hmm. And your staff, I don't know, are all your staff believers or not? And did it matter? And if they're not, how did they embrace it? Tell us about that.
Right. So I use the spiritual gifts tool as God directs me. So my management and leadership team, they all do it. My staff, I've picked and chosen. So if I feel like I need to understand that person more, then I'll use the tool. All of my staff, they're not all Christian. We have a couple people who are not. They're of a different religion. But we're just in here glorifying God. They hear me calling on Jesus. They just get used to it. They're like, oh, that's just Miss Stephanie, right? And even my teachers, because I have a younger staff, even my managers, I have one that's in her late 30s, but my other managers are younger than me. They're in their 20s. And so with them, they're in a different space in their walk. They're all in different places. So they don't really understand like how deep it is. They're like, oh, she just has me doing something again. What'd you get, right? It's kind of like when you used to be in those magazines when you were a teenager doing the personality test. What'd you get? I don't know. So that's all it is. They don't really understand it. And then when I start showing it to them, like one of my managers, she operates in the gift of wisdom. And so I'm like, all right, Miss Lamika, like you got the gift of wisdom. So you're going to do this exercise. And she sees now how she can do it and do it like faster and more efficient and get it where the rest of us are all struggling. So they get to see their gifts in action. So I don't know if they really understand it from the whole like full picture of it. They're just like, that's just what Miss Stephanie has us doing.
That is so funny. But I love that. So you're creating this like kingdom culture in the midst of what you're doing. And some people, they see that if somebody is a believer, then they might be looking at that as an overtly Christian approach. But for someone who's not, they're getting the benefits of the kingdom, but they don't have to necessarily align themselves with everything that you believe. But yet they still get to benefit from the culture that's created there.
Exactly. And then what I find is in time, right, God will start to move like through them. So it's funny because I'll walk around, I'll be like, Father. So then like weeks will go past, and then all of a sudden I'll hear my staff, Father, Jesus. I'm like, okay, God, you're getting them little by little. We're just taking them for the kingdom. And it doesn't feel like it's not this like super religious thing. Like, I'm not like, we have to go and worship the Lord. Like, we're just doing what we do, and we have fun and we enjoy it, and it works for us.
That's right. You're not like, oh, my blueprint is to do this, and this, and then that'll make sure people come to Christ. No, you're just being you.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Just being me.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so how does it look like for you, just kind of in the operational decision making, whether it has to do with staff or marketing or other types of decisions that you make? What does it look like for you to really partner with God in the midst of that?
So for me, one thing that I've started doing probably in the last year or so, I try to start my week with a business meeting with God. And so I try to plan out the week, see if I hear anything from the Lord. Of course, I try to listen to sermons randomly. Like, I'll go on YouTube and just start scrolling. I'm like, God, which one you got for me today? Like, which one stands out? And sometimes it's in direct alignment with what's happening in my business. But I think it just goes like seeking God for his guidance. Like, when we seek God, he's going to show up. When we seek God, he's going to tell us. We don't have to have anything in particular that we're doing. He's going to direct us and lead us to what it is that he needs us to do. This is what I think. Everyone has to do what they're led to do. I believe that God, even for kingdom-driven entrepreneurs, even for any business person, really, but God will speak to you and he'll tell you what he needs from you, right? So when he needs you to be disciplined in one area, when he needs you to do this, he's going to start telling you. And then it's up to you to listen. I don't think that it's ever going to be like a formula of how to get to God, right? I think it's just God will work with you on this thing, then he starts working with you on this thing, and then it's this, and then it all just comes together. I just try to make sure that, I think it goes back to me being myself, right? I try to make sure I'm myself when I show up. I try to make sure that even like we have Monday morning prayer, we're not always super consistent with that. But if I feel something in my spirit, then I know that, okay, God, I need to do that. Like, just listen to your spirit.
Yeah. So now when it comes to, I mean, you've had to make some decisions about growing. You know, am I going to buy this second location? There's all these decisions. These are not minor decisions to say I'm going to expand. It's your expanding for you looks way different than expansion for someone who has a much smaller investment necessary to expand. Like, these are not small decisions. So walk me through what that's been like for you. I mean, the fact that you were so young when you started in the first place tells me that there's a level of risk kind of tolerance and excitement that you have, that you can actually just kind of go after things. But at the same time, as you learn to yield this thing to God, you're like, I don't want to get ahead of him on this thing, but I want to expand. Like, that's on my heart. So how have you been able to kind of take like maybe the aspects of your personality that you might normally have kind of driven hard after something, and whether God's ever pulled you back or had you move slower, or what that's been like for you as you're making big decisions?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm such a practical person. Like, even one of the things that's very important to me is that I never let this business go to my head, that I never look at my success and feel like, oh, you know, I'm so successful, I'm up here and everyone else is down here. I don't look at it that way. When people see me, I want them to, like my staff, for instance, I want them to say, okay, she opened a business at 26. I can open a business at 26. I want them to have that same mindset. And then in terms of the decisions that I make, because I'm so practical, so let me give you an example.
Yes.
When I made the decision to buy a building, right, that's crazy, right? It's like, oh my goodness. And so I had a broker, and we came to look at the building. And so I'm in the parking lot, I'm looking around. It's an old garage, right? So it doesn't even look like a school. It's complete, reconstruction, redo everything. And I'm like, God, just give me a sign if this is the building for me, like if I'm making the right decision. And so I look over at the garage, it's like this old beat up door, but in the corner on the window frame of the door on that glass, there's a little sticker with a cross on it that says like, follow me to some United Methodist Church or whatever. And so I'm like, okay, there's the sign. And so I think after that, I went into our Igniters community I was like, Shay, like, probably everyone. Does anyone have anyone I can connect with or something? And I ended up connecting with one of the Igniter's mentors, John.
Yes.
And he was like, you may get it, or there may be something that comes on the market. Like, he didn't tell me yes, he didn't tell me no. It was kind of like I walked away not knowing. But seeing that sticker was enough for me. I'm like, all right, guys, you're speaking through stickers now. Let's do it, right? So I think that's how the decision-making comes. Like, we just have to trust that God has the very best interest at heart for us. And so there's really not much that you can do that's way out of the will of God, because he's going to correct you, right? And as long as you take the correction and you don't like go against them, I think you're going to be fine. I don't know. I don't have any something.
Well, I actually love that you said that, because I was headed there. Because I think what's so cool about what you said is that you're like, I'm going to take this step forward. I think a lot of people are too scared to take the steps forward. They'll spend so much time in the trying to evaluate, is it God, is it not, is it God, is it not, that they won't even take steps forward to see how the path moves and how God speaks as they're moving. And what I'm hearing from you is that as opposed to waiting a long time to determine, I'm not sure, you kind of like, God, show me something. Give me a sign. And you're like, you could have been evaluating, well, I don't know. Was that enough of a sign? Was it, was that really a sign? Was that,
right.
But instead you're like, I'm going to keep going forward in the direction of you maintain an ear to hear what God has to say as you're moving.
As you move. That's right. And I remember being at one of the Igniters gatherings, and that's one of the questions I asked you, because I was listening to people and they were, waiting for yes and waiting for yes. But for me, I think it's different, right? I could sit here and wait for yes. I don't think God is going to give me that yes until he actually sees me take action, until I actually move. So I move and then I deal with the course correction if that happens, or with the victory or whatever it is. But I don't wait to hear the yes first. And that's one of the things that as I'm considering this expansion, that I was thinking, like, am I going to hear a yes? But I almost feel like God is saying to me, like, if I tell you yes, right, and then it's good to go, that requires no faith, because you already have the yes. So it doesn't require faith. But when you don't have the yes and you don't know for sure, and you're in that space where you're like, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? Whatever. You really have to depend on your faith, because you don't have sure confirmation or whatever.
I love this idea that you're like, listen, I believe that, what's on my heart is what's on God's heart concerning expansion. And so I operate off of the default that expansion is good. Expansion is what's on God's heart. Like, this is the vision. And so I'm operating with the default of yes, but with an ear to hear every step of the way. I'm telling you, this is like breakthrough for some folks right now. Like, this is breakthrough for some folks right now. And that's why intimacy with God is so important, though, right? Because if we embrace our relationship with God as more than a, hey, here's my plans, God, please bless them. Or, hey, just kind of a disconnect, like I talk to God on Sunday, but I'm not really talking to him any other time. If we have that kind of ongoing relationship with him, there's so much freedom in just the movement toward the thing that is on your heart. There's freedom in that. And there's freedom in that I think a lot of people don't operate in. A lot. So I feel like this conversation is like a breakthrough moment for a lot of people who are waiting for a yes that they've already received. They're waiting on a whole nother kind of yes, another specific yes, another whatever. But if your heart and God's heart are aligned on a thing, go. Exactly. Don't go running off and not paying any attention as you're running, which would have been what I would have done years ago. Thanks, Lord. I got the yes. I'm going to go build the whole thing. I'll at you later. I got, you gave me the skill to build, but no, like operating with him. And I think you have done a really beautiful job of that. As I've known you and as you've been kind of walking this out, I love it. When I think about you, I think about expansion. I think growth. Like, I think no limits. That's what I think when I think about you, and watching you walk that out, knowing that that's God's heart concerning you, having that ear to hear and the willingness to obey, even if something looks good to you, but he shows you something otherwise, that's powerful. And that leads to a lot of growth.
I love that. I think that for me, it just feels normal. I think what you said about intimacy with God and how your identity is revealed, and you get to know yourself more as you spend time with God and all of that. I just think that I still have so much growing to go.
Yes. But the fact that you're starting with a foundation of understanding your freedom and alignment with him for what he's shown you is super powerful.
Thank you.
It's super powerful. Everything that continues to grow on that just keeps getting better and better. But for a lot of people, getting to that point of freedom takes way longer than I wish it would. Do you know what I'm saying? And so for that to be a foundation, that's why I was like, I remember at an Igniters gathering that we put you in all kinds of awkward positions because you were the youngest person there, which I think was your first time. I don't know if it was your first or the second time being at an Igniters gathering, but we're like, that's what we want you to release over folks. There's people in here that have dreams for buildings. There's people in here that like release that, like that freedom to just move as God's shown you stuff. Like just move, whatever's on your heart, move. Powerful.
Wow.
Powerful. What's the thing that God's working with you the most? Like what's kind of like the growth point right now for you that you're kind of working through with the Lord?
Yeah, I feel like, so, I do have this desire, I think, kind of, right, that I've been thinking about for years, and that is to go and help other childcare center owners. And so recently I felt like God, during the quarantine, actually, that God was like, okay, you love your staff, so you're supposed to work with teachers. And so I did a whole CDA training and certification training for them all through Zoom, and that was great.
Did you say CDA? What is that?
It's like a early childhood credential.
Gotcha.
So I was like, all right, Lord, send the people and I'll do a group and I'll do the training. And so I did that. And that was cool. And I was like, okay, he's going to have me work with teachers now. And then I don't think that's it. And so as much success and, I feel so victorious over here with my buildings, right, with the schools. But as I think about the online space, that thought and that desire doesn't leave me, but I haven't quite figured out how to do it. Like I know how to do it from the technical piece, but just in terms of, do I have a yes there and that is having me doing all of that? For the online world, that is definitely a challenge for me. But I do believe that it is an area of growth because it doesn't leave, right? So even when I try to run from it, God brings it back.
Yes.
And so you just have to see what he's going to do there.
Yeah, that's so good. And what I love about that too, there's assignments on many of our lives who have impact on our industry. So the same things that you're learning as the business owner in this industry, the fact that you can take lessons from that, from a kingdom perspective even, right? And can take a look at that and help others to develop that becomes an industry impact. A lot of people, you kind of think about your industry as a whole and think about, okay, well, kind of who are the leaders in this industry? What does that look like? What's the perception in this industry? Where's like, what would reflecting God's glory look like in this particular industry? My friend Darren Shearer has a book called The Marketplace Christian, where he poses this question, like, what would it look like in my industry to see the glory of God reflected across this entire industry? And yet us as kingdom-driven entrepreneurs, a lot of us have assignments to not just walk that out in our own businesses, but also to take what we're learning and to take kind of kingdom culture, kingdom principles and all of that and have an impact into others who are in that industry as well. And that's how we see multiplication. And so I'm excited about the fact that that's not going away, and that you're beginning to walk that out. That's really good. That's going to be very powerful. So I'm excited. That's good. What thought would you like to leave with listeners about doing business in partnership with God?
Ooh, now you didn't tell me this question was coming, Shay, Lord.
I didn't know it was coming.
Okay, everything is going good. Okay, now let me just think.
I love you.
This question. The first thing that comes to my mind is, and in partnership with God, like, don't forget your team. Like, this journey is not about us, right? This journey is about even the people that God sends to us, even the people that get assigned to us that support our dreams and help us to go on. And those people sometimes, they're treated like they're on the outside. You know what I mean? But really, they're on the inside. They're the ones that make it all happen. And so when you are a leader and you're a business owner, don't forget your team. Like, help them to grow, just like you help them to get better at their job, help them to get better at their life, help them to develop and cultivate their relationship with God and the Holy Spirit. As God is growing you, they should also be growing. Like, just as you move and receive increase, your team should receive that too. And so I think that would be the thing that I would like to share.
It's good stuff. All right. So this has been great, Stephanie. Thank you so much for sharing. First of all, two things. For those who want to get more information about the Academy and want to just see what you and God have been up to up there, like where do they get information about the Academy?
Okay, so my schools are Discovery Time Learning Center and Discovery Time Learning Academy, and we live online at discoverytimelearning.com.
Awesome. And if people want to get in contact with you directly, what's the best for them to connect with you?
They can email me directly at stephanie.ed12@gmail.com.
Okay, very good. Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us. This was fun.
It was so fun. Thank you, Shay.
Thanks for joining us on the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we encourage you to subscribe and spread the word. And don't forget, you can gain access to even more resources, plus a thriving community of fire starters by visiting our website at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com.